Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network.
They sound good. Eugene Burton, James McRae, and Nico Rhodes together. They are a jazz trio, and we're hanging out with them today. An island woman shortlisted for a one-way trip to Mars. Results of a raw food lifestyle and arm wrestle mania. You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. There's a lot of creativity that takes place in this tiny little garage in central Nanaimo. I think it's our third time being here. The caliber of musicians that call this their rehearsal space is very, very high, and we're going to chat and hear from these three gentlemen later on this edition of Go Island. But first, if you were offered a one-way ticket to Mars, would you go? Well, there's a woman in East Souk just outside of Victoria who was one of 200,000 people that applied to do just that, go to Mars and never come back. Well, she's been shortlisted. Here's Dan Kahn. So while we're looking at a population on Mars, it's safe to say that jazz trios are perhaps on the decline. We were chit-chatting earlier, James, about maybe even
live
being
music.
a declining species.
Live music is a declining, live music is really in a challenging, precarious place right now. Not enough people are going out and supporting live music. And so I think it's not just for jazz trios, original jazz music trios like what we're doing, but it's just generally for all musicians that are doing live performances. There's, it's difficult getting people out. And partly, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. But bottom line is, yeah, it's challenging and it is a bit endangered, live music.
And you think that's even more so on Vancouver Island than the mainland or bigger centers?
It's hard for me to
We're always bragging about how good it is here, right?
Hard for me to give a concrete answer on that because I live in Nanaimo. I can just sort of speak from, where I live, Maybe more people are going out in larger cities like Toronto and that. I don't know because I don't live there.
Right. So who are these guys? You've collaborated on
yeah, it's three people that have come together to play original music. That we all write songs. Bass player Eugene, Nico on piano, and myself, we all write songs, and we have a passion for doing that, and we really enjoy the process of getting together with each other and focusing on our own compositions. So it's a little bit different in that we're not just following a repertoire that has been laid down by somebody else. The one exception to that is in some of the songs that we're doing that are done by classical composers from the deep past like Chopin and Bach. We're doing a few tunes by them. They're not called tunes usually, they're called like classical compositions. But
they're not usually associated with jazz either, are they?
Not as much, but that's something, maybe Nico will elaborate on. Essentially, when they were doing that material at the time, it would have been an improvised activity that they were involved in as well, and maybe it became standardized. So it was a part of the classical canon. Essentially, the same things happen with jazz nowadays. So there's a repertoire that is kind of crystallized, and it's sort of assumed that if you're involved in that particular music style that you will be familiar with that material. So what's a little bit unusual about what we're doing is we're focusing on our own music, okay? Which is what those people that are following the different, material from those different elements, whether it be jazz or classical, that's what they're focusing on, other people's music. We're focusing on our own music.
Does that make it harder then to get those people out and get those support because it's more risky for an audience to
Well, it's like
invest
how
time
many
and money?
people would like to listen to Stairway to Heaven versus a song by three people that they don't really know who they are,
Right. Right.
And the answer is fairly obvious to that, If they started playing my songs on beer commercials or something like that, it would really help, but it's not happening yet, okay?
But it will, right? We're very
Well,
optimistic.
yeah, you want to be optimistic in this business because there's a lot of reasons to be pessimistic, okay?
It almost seems like a silly question, but it's an uphill battle. It's not a job that pays a lot of money. We joked earlier about eating crab dinner and stuff like that. Why do it then? I mean, why not?
Because of the love of doing it. It's essentially, if you love something, you keep on hoping that the money will follow after that, right? And even if it doesn't, the fact is that you can be passionate and really believe in something you're doing, that's probably the most valuable, you know, thing that you can be doing in life, is doing something you believe in and that you're really passionate and you love doing it. Because on some level, you're going to spread that energy around to the people that you're hanging out with and sharing your experience with, and that's going to be an uplifting thing. And that's really what I'm into, is doing something that's uplifting for myself and the world that I live in, you know, in every way. Yeah, that's pretty good, eh?
Awesome. Well, thanks for bringing that energy and uplifting us here on this edition of Go Island. We will chat with Nico Rhodes later, as well as Eugene, that guy over there. In the meantime, it's time for a short break. Still to come, better health through a raw food lifestyle, and the Nanaimo Clippers face off in Arm WrestleMania.
Hi, my name is Allison Crow, and did you know that music has been in my family for generations? My great-grandfather was a fiddle player, and I've actually recently taken up the fiddle myself. I'm not very good yet, though I have put a bit of recorded fiddle of myself playing on my new album, Heavy Graces. But anyways, I've been playing my great-grandfather's violin that my dad had fixed up, and you can see the notches in the wood where he played, and I would say it's over 100 years old for sure. So yeah, that's fun to me.
You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. We're here in a tiny little rehearsal garage space. It's getting quite warm in here. And Eugene Burton's wearing a hat. And you said it's mostly for looks?
Mostly for looks, yeah. We're kind of a looks-based band, so to speak. You know, taking a little bit of Justin Bieber and One Direction and kind of melding that with jazz elements and even a little bit of Mozart in there. You know, he was quite the ladies' man of his day.
I hear that he was, absolutely. Of course, we're joking around, and I hear that you, although you might not believe it through this conversation, are the voice of reason when it comes to these guys.
That's a way of putting it, yeah. I mean, I'm the bass player of the group, and so as a bass player, you kind of have to hold everything together in a sense, like, especially between James and Nico. I mean, Nico is this phenomenal piano player who's just got like ideas galore that he throws out there, and James is right along with him. Usually they'll go in so many different directions throughout the course of one song and one person's solo even, and I have to kind of keep the beat going and make sure everyone ends up where we want to at the end of it.
Well, it's kind of hard in a creative process because you don't want to put walls and limits on people when they're exploring an art.
You can kind of compare it to I don't know if you're familiar with improv theater, but it's kind of the same. You always want to try and say yes to everyone. And musically, you want to try and follow everyone and kind of go along with them, but you also want to maintain a kind of individuality about your own playing and your own lines.
You sound like a pretty young guy. And James was a little bit negative on the opportunities in the music scene, especially here on Vancouver Island. What makes you want to pursue a career? I'm assuming that you are.
Yeah, well, I kind of go back and forth between music and other things, but I'm definitely looking to do music full time.
What's the other things?
Sometimes I like work at Pizza Hut right now.
I worked there when I was younger, yeah.
And you know, sometimes you have to do odd jobs in the arts, but you kind of continue doing music because you love it.
And you'll follow that path.
And I'm pretty positive about the music scene in Nanaimo. You know, there's a lot of young people like Michaela Toom or Alexandria Mayotte who've come from Nanaimo and show that young people have amazing talent still, and this is a great place to do it. Like, I moved here from Vancouver, and I found in some way like there's less ego here, and I don't know.
Cool.
I really like everyone on the island. So.
Welcome. Thanks for coming today and being here and sharing with us. We're going to talk to Nico Rhodes later on this edition of Go Island. In the meantime, we're throwing things over to Kelly Robinson, looking at the benefits of a raw food diet. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. We're having way too much fun here, and I gave extra time for this show, but we're already short because James McRae, he's sitting over there. He took a whole lot of the time at the beginning. So we're going to get into Nico Rhodes. We're talking about composing, which is what you guys are doing in this trio.
Absolutely. One of the fun aspects about this trio is that everything, almost all the material we play is original material. So it's generally fairly equivalent in the band as to who's contributing. James and I write a little bit more than Eugene, but Eugene's are of such a fine quality. but we accept it. And it's really an opportunity for us to express our own musical ideas and then shed them as a group and try them together, rehearse them, collaborate on that, and that's pretty unique. There's not a lot of groups around that do that, so that's really fun.
And you've just finished a big project composing for the Vancouver Island Symphony and Rick Scott.
Rick Scott, yes. I just today I sent out the files, all the scores. I just finished writing the orchestrations and arrangements for Rick Scott's My Symphony show, which is on the 13th at the Port Theatre. And that's my first time ever writing for a symphony, so I am still trembling a little bit.
It'll be fabulous. It'll be fabulous. And it does bring us to the point that in order for a musician to really succeed, which you are doing, you have to be versatile.
Very.
And you have to do more than one thing, and composing is a big part of that.
Very much so. A lot of my mentors really drove that home with me. My mom actually also really did from a young age. She said, if you're going to do this, you need to be doing it from a bunch of different facets. You need to be playing, you need to be writing, you need to be arranging. And one of people I really am inspired by, Phil Dwyer. You know, he makes a lot of his living doing arrangements and composition, and that really clued something in for me. James actually was a huge motivator in that too. When I was younger in high school, he used to say, Nico, you know, you got to write your own tunes. You got to write your own tunes. So thanks, James. And yeah, that's multifaceted is important. You know, playing multiple instruments, approaching multiple styles, never being confined to anything, and really just taking the time to experience all that music has to offer.
Let's give a little shout out to Phil Dwyer as well. He was just accepted into the Order of Canada
Congrats,
as a
Phil.
member there, so congratulations. Classical fused with jazz, that's normal? Is that out of the box?
Normal. Well,
Whatever normal is.
Whatever normal is, especially in jazz. There was a period in time where there's a style called third stream jazz, which is actually classical and jazz coming together, and that has come and gone over the years. But what we're doing in this particular group is more akin to kind of a Keith Jarrett trio style concept. We're taking classical music and material like Bach's Goldberg Variations, Chopin Nocturnes, pieces by Debussy, and we're treating them in their original form, and then we're totally improvising and going crazy over them, but really respecting the original intent of the piece. So I think we have a fairly original approach to that, but we'll see how it turns out.
Excellent. There are 3 concerts coming up on the island from the Burton, McRae, Rhodes trio. One of them is right here in Nanaimo. That's taking place on the 24th of January at Acme Food Company downstairs, 7:30. It's an all-ages show. We'll remind you about that again and give you more dates before the end of this edition of Go Island. Moving in an entirely different direction now from music to arm WrestleMania with the Nanaimo Clippers. The Clippers lineup has changed since the beginning of the season, and to see where things are currently, the best place to go is the website, www.nanaimoclippers.com. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. Before we go, every time I talk to musicians, my dad, who's a musician, says, why don't you ask them how much time they spend rehearsing? So, Dad, this one is for you. For every 1 hour of performance, the Burton, McRae, Rhodes trio rehearse for about 5. So that one's for you, Dad. And Nico is shouting out to his mom, Joelle Rabu. So hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. It's enough of that family stuff. You can catch the Burton, McRae, Rhodes trio in person at the Acme Food Company downstairs, January the 24th, 7:30. It's an all-ages show. They're hitting Herman's Jazz Club in Victoria the following night. That's January the 25th. And then they head up to Cumberland on the 26th for a 2 p.m. afternoon show at Studio Live. You can get full details on a website that I'm going to ask you to refer to the information on your screen. Thanks for watching this edition of Go Island. We'll see you next time.
Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network. Clothing supplied by Catwalk Fashions. Kate's Hair and Aesthetics provided by Maffeo Salon.